Are you part of the 5% who are playing this type of shot properly? All you want to do is just make the 8 ball into the corner pocket and get a nice position on the 9 ball. And it looks very simple, right? Yet I see so many players mess this one up. But once you understand the why and how to play it properly, this will not only help you with this type of shot, but with many more shots. Now just take a moment to think about what you would do in this situation. And then I'm going to reveal the common mistake that most players are doing, and I'm going to show you exactly how to play it properly. If you decided to just roll the 8 ball in and play the 9 ball into the same corner pocket, this puts you with the majority, with the 95%. But don't worry, it looks like the most straightforward play, but in reality this shot is much trickier than the actual shot I'm about to show you. The main problem here is that it's just not natural to play the shot in with that type of speed. The 8 ball barely has to drop so that the cue ball doesn't travel too far, and that way you completely lose control. The cue ball can roll off, the object ball can roll off, or you can completely miss the shot, or you're making the shot, but the cue ball travels way too far. So a finesse shot with absolutely zero margin for error is required here. This is why we're going to play the shot with our feel-good stroke, which is of course not slow rolling the ball, trying to hold it here, and it's of course not playing the shot with 100% power, it's something in between. So what happens if we're playing this shot just harder? Well, we already know that the cue ball comes from here to here, and in our previous shot it stopped here. But what happens if we just extend the line? Depending on the exact spin we're adding, the cue ball will hit somewhere around here. And from this rail, of course, the cue ball goes into this direction, somewhere in this area. And if you then extend the line one more time from this rail, you can see that the cue ball kind of goes into the line of the 9 ball, and this is exactly what we want. This is our straight line, and the cue ball travels along this line. So we're very close to the straight line of the 9 ball, and we can have a very makeable shot, and we can just use our feel-good stroke, probably no spin, and have a nice shot on the 9 ball with no risk of the cue ball rolling off, rolling to the side, or missing the whole shot. So let's just play this shot with no spin on the cue ball. And you can see from here the cue ball travels not perfectly along the line, but it travels this path. But if the cue ball ends somewhere on this area on the table, then we have a very nice shot on the 9 ball, and we could just play the 8 ball in with our feel-good stroke. So now, since we're not public on YouTube anymore, we can actually dive a bit deeper into the topic, because we're not bound to watch time and optimizing the whole video. So this is a pure coaching, teaching lesson without any fancy stuff. So one guy in the comment section actually already asked what we could have done. Of course, you need to watch the video before you're watching this video to understand what I'm talking about. So he was asking before if I actually could have used some left spin to shallow the angle so that we have a chance to get straighter on the 9 ball. Because as you remember, if I'm just playing that in with a center ball or maybe a fraction of right spin, you can see we are not getting straight on a 9 ball because the cue ball travels into this direction. Of course, if you're playing on new cloth, then it will actually slide a bit along the rail, and we actually have a good chance to get straight on the 9. But you saw we already hit with the cue ball here, so it's very difficult. So what happens if we're using some left spin on that shot? First of all, I'm going to use a bit too much left spin, which is very likely to happen because it's very difficult to just put a tiny amount of spin on the cue ball. And see if you're first of all going to make the ball, because playing this shot with left spin, with inside spin, is awfully difficult. So let's see how this turns out. So no cuts in this video. And you can see if I'm playing that with left spin, we even bring the cue ball towards here. And we kind of have a nice shot on the 9 ball that way. But again, this was way too much spin. Not even maximum, but it was already too much. And we passed the 9 ball. And it's a bit risky to actually scratch into here and to miss the whole shot. Because if your stroke is not 100% the same as you visualized before, and if you decelerate on the shot, then you're going to completely miss the 8 ball. So let's try to do that on purpose and decelerate. So usually when I'm hitting harder, the cue ball deflects more to the right, but if I decelerate, which was a bit over-exaggerated here, then the cue ball won't deflect that much. The cue ball will curve a bit back. We have the spin-induced throw and so on. So playing that shot with inside spin is really, really difficult, especially if you're not putting the exact stroke on than you intended. And even if you do, it's still very difficult. So now to the initial question, let's try to just use a tiny, tiny bit of left spin and see if we can somehow get to that side. So I'm trying to just use not even a quarter of a tip of left spin here. Now we hit the rail here, and you can see now the side pocket really comes into play. So the cue ball would have, basically traveled towards here and from here like this. So in order to actually have that perfect 9-ball, the cue ball would actually need to hit where the side pocket is and travel out like this. So playing this shot with left spin really, really has no benefit. It won't increase your shot making, it will actually lower your shot making. And regarding position play, there is really no real advantage. Of course, if there are some blocking balls on the table, maybe this path is blocked, so you might actually have to go this path, then you might do this. But on the other hand, if it's really difficult to get position on the next ball, what you can always do, or if you don't even like that shot, and if you don't want to take it on, then you can actually try to play a safety right away and just split the balls, as you can see, to opposite rails. So to that rail and that rail, with a good chance to actually have the 9 as a blocker, which we almost got here. But I still think this is actually a very, very controlled shot. And we didn't really leave anything easy here. I actually have to kick at that and make it into the corner pocket. So awesome, with perfect shape on the 9. So this is also a valid option to just play a safety instead if you don't like the shot, or if you're a bit nervous, if you're a bit shaking. And if you just don't like the shot, then of course it would make much more sense to play the safety instead. Well, one more shot that I want to show you that sometimes can get handy. If there, for example, again, blocking balls on the table, what you could also do is play a whole lot of right spin and actually add a bit of low on the cue ball and try to hit that rail first. Because what will happen on slidey tables is, from here the cue ball will slide to here, and then travel basically along this path. And if you have a table where the angle shallows a bit more, then you're actually going to hit here, and maybe even go into the line of the 9-ball. But playing the 8-ball here with low and right and hard actually will lower your shot making success a lot, I think. So for me at least, it lowers my shot making, and I think for the majority as well. So let's give it a try. It's not 100% controllable. It's a bit crazy, a bit risky also with that corner pocket. So let's see if I can pull it off. You can see like that, a bit too soft. But as you can see, the cue ball also travels a pretty okay line, maybe a bit too soft. So we have a missable 9-ball. It's not the easiest shot in the world. So I think, this is also a valid option. And I think this should be enough.